the sheer ingenuity and creativity of the Trump administration's Department of Justice and their screw-ups in court seems to be boundless. This makes the 62 Mets look like murderers' row. We have a new one. Sit down for this one, everybody. We now have a war that's broken out where the Department of Transportation, as the client, is attacking in the open its lawyers that work in the same government at the Department of Justice in the Southern District of New York's office, because 3 lawyers there, obviously gassed, obviously emotionally and physically drained, uploaded the wrong document to the official docket of a case involving New York State against the Transportation Department, because there, the Transportation Department's trying to quash New York State's ability to control congestion and traffic with congestion toll pricing in Manhattan. Remember, that's the one where Donald Trump put up a phony Time magazine article, an illustration with him as the king of New York. Remember that one? Yeah. Well, there's a $9 charge if you come into Manhattan below 60th Street, and it's reduced transportation by like 13%. That's a good thing. So there's a lawsuit. It's before Judge Lyman. Judge Lyman gets an entry on the docket, right? An electronic docket where entries for papers are recorded at 9:20 last night, docket number 65. It's supposed to be a letter addressed to him on behalf of the feds, the Southern District, New York lawyers representing the Department of Justice, about some, procedural issue, about some record-keeping issue that they want to. It was a relatively minor, who cares letter, except they uploaded when they went to their computer. I guess they couldn't see it. They uploaded instead of the letter to Judge Lyman dated the 24th, they uploaded an internal document containing secret attorney-client recommendations and advice to the Department of Transportation from their own lawyers, in which the lawyers declared that your position in this case, Secretary Duffy for Transportation, is not going to go over well with Judge Lyman. We'll give you another way to do it, but the 2 major arguments that you're making are not going to work. You should drop them. Now, that's something that in candor with the attorney-client privilege and the litigation privilege, you give to your client. You may put it in a memo. I often give my advice orally because of this reason. What happened is they didn't mark it clearly as attorney-client privilege, which I always would do in red letters. And when they were uploading it, somebody got the number wrong or the file number wrong. And instead of uploading the letter addressed to Judge Lyman, they uploaded their own internal, secret, confidential attorney-client memo, crap it all over their case, but trying to give them another way. And now the Transportation Department is up in arms, yelling and screaming at their lawyers, and the lawyers have been reassigned. Isn't this fun? You see what happens when you take what used to be the proud institution of the Southern District of New York and the elite Manhattan prosecutors, and you make everybody quit, because you're forcing them to drop cases against Mayor Adams and others, and you're making them do things that are unethical, and everybody leaves. The group that stays is overworked and underpaid, and they make mistakes like this. Let's dive into it with relish here on Legal AF. While you're here, speaking of relish, I'll give you all the hot dog, but here's the relish. Hit the subscribe. I don't know why I've been like in a baseball mood. Hit the subscribe button as we continue to grow our pro-democracy channel. All right, let me break down what happened here. Back in February, the state of New York, run by Governor Hochul, great governor, she files a lawsuit against the Department of Transportation, the Trump administration, because they're screwing with her about the toll, congestion tolling. They want to stop the program. She's allowed to do the program under a federal grant, where to address traffic. I mean, traffic is just, having lived there and worked there for years, traffic is out of control in Manhattan. There's only 3 or 4 bridges and tunnels on the way in. It's gridlock. If there's any slight event going on or police disturbance or the United Nations is in town, it is complete and utter madness. So they've been trying to get a handle on that. They want to reduce the amount of cars coming into the city. You've got taxis, then you got Ubers, then you got Lyfts, then you got scooters, then you got people driving in from Jersey and Brooklyn and Staten Island. It's a mess. So they imposed this congestion toll, $9. You know what it's done? It's reduced the amount of traffic in the city by a lot, not a little. There are 6 million less cars coming into the city every day because of it. And traffic is down 13%. That's a good thing. But to Donald Trump, who wants to be the king of New York, it's a terrible thing. Gotta get rid of it. So the New York sues over it to get a declaration that they can do it. And it's litigating. Normal course, okay? Backdrop, though. There's like a context here. Southern District is rocked with an ethics scandal where senior lawyers like Miss Sassoon and several others are fired, because they're being forced to do unethical things and unprofessional things by the Department of Justice, now run by Donald Trump's former criminal lawyer henchman. And so they all start leaving, right? Danielle Sassoon, 9-page letter. I can't do this anymore. This is unprofessional and unethical. We want to re-indict Mayor Adams, not drop the indictment. And then Ed Kim, he replaces her. He gets fired. Then another one comes in. He gets fired. And Donald Trump, all he wants to do is put his golf buddy, Jay Clayton, who used to be the head of the Securities and Exchange Commission under Donald Trump. Literally, it's the golf buddy of Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, and Donald Trump. That's how he got the job. I mean, whatever. So he was a U.S. attorney once before. They give him back the job. In fact, in filings they make to the court, they misstate his title. He is not, I assure you, the United States Attorney for Manhattan, Jay Clayton. He is at best the acting interim U.S. Attorney for Manhattan for at least 4 more months until he can get confirmed. But why quibble? So everybody's leaving, quitting, leaving. But, there are some lawyers left. They got nowhere to go and whatever it is. And 3 lawyers in particular, I don't mean to call them out, but it's in the public domain. It's 3 lawyers. Actually, I'm not going to call them out. It's 3 lawyers. One happens to be the deputy chief of the civil division for litigation in the Manhattan DA's office. Pretty good job. Been out for about 20 years. The other 2 lawyers are relatively junior. All right. So they, you give advice. You write memos, to your client. You say, this is the good part of your case. This is the bad part of your case. That we should emphasize this. We should de-emphasize that. We should develop this record. And they basically gave Duffy, I'm not going to read you the letter. It's been sealed now, although I do have a copy. They from the docket, they argue, the merits of the case, and they give Duffy or somebody working for Duffy, Erin Hendrickson, the senior trial attorney at the Department of Transportation. They give her advice. We should emphasize this. This is a loser before Judge Lyman. Fix this. This is the better argument. You know what lawyers do? I mean, what you don't do is you don't send that onto the public docket for your adversary to see and for me to report on. And so they immediately figured out, 30 minutes later, they figured out when the media saw it, boop, bing, 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 phones blowing up. I'm sure this is the worst day in these 3 relatively young lawyers' lives. And they get a file now, a few minutes later, 30, 40 minutes later, a letter to Judge Lyman. I'm already getting nervous for them. And here's what that letter said. Dear Judge Lyman, at 9:04 p.m. last night, the undersigned counsel inadvertently uploaded an attorney-client communication from this office to DOT, Department of Transportation, to ECF, which is the electronic filing docket system. You click some buttons, you attach some documents, and it uploads, rather than a letter intended for your honor. Immediately upon realizing this error at 9:18, all right, so it took them 14 minutes, we contacted all counsel of record via email, advising them of this inadvertent filing of a privileged communication and requesting that they not download the document, or if they did, to delete it. And then the clerk put a temporary seal on it at 9:48. Accordingly, we respectfully request that the court remove or permanently seal docket number 65 and hold that the inadvertent filing does not constitute a waiver of the attorney-client privilege. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience. Respectfully, these 3 lawyers on behalf of Jay Clayton, United States Attorney for Southern District. Now, that did not satisfy the Department of Transportation and Sean Duffy, who I think is married to somebody on Fox News, who went cuckoo crazy and started publicly attacking their own lawyers that work in the same government out loud. Here's what Here's what they had to say on that one. So they start complaining. The Department of Transportation starts complaining that this is legal malpractice. This is a continued fall from grace for the Southern District of New York. And it's either incompetence or it is a form of resistance on behalf of these lawyers. So they're not saying it was an innocent error. It wasn't an honest error. They're rejecting that, and they're attacking their own lawyers. So the Department of Justice, led by Pam Bondi and ultimately Donald Trump, decided they had to transfer the case out of the Southern District of New York and send it to Main Justice in Washington for them to handle it more closely. But have you ever seen such a thing? This is like when the FBI and the Department of Justice were battling it out in the early days of the Trump administration this time around. Now you've got the client yelling at the lawyers, accusing them of being not only incompetent, but unprofessional and having intentionally leaked something in order to undermine their case, which is a serious charge to make against a lawyer, especially a series of young lawyers. Now, listen, I went through the LinkedIn for some of these lawyers. I mean, one in particular, I don't know. She reposted something about somebody complaining about being fired from U.S. aid by the Trump administration. Probably not the smartest thing to do, but I don't really care about their politics. Errors happen. Have I ever sent an attorney, everybody who's a lawyer, who participates in electronic discovery and exchange of documents in the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pages, everyone I know has made an error one time in their life where they've sent inadvertently an attorney-client privilege document to the other side. It happens. You know, there's just a sheer volume of documents. You know, you use platforms and databases to try to sort it through. You use AI to help you. But sometimes it's just human error. Something slips through. And there's a procedure under the federal rules to reclaim that, to claw it back so it doesn't harm the client. It happens. And I'm not here to defend, I don't know exactly what happened here, but I highly doubt that these three lawyers for the Department of Justice's Southern District of New York decided to, and on behalf of, supporting their colleagues who quit, sacrifice their professional ethics by hitting the inadvertent button. If they did that, they would have just left it there. They knew it was going to get picked up by the media. All right. So they can fix this. It's not helping to bash them. They shouldn't be airing the dirty laundry, if you know what I mean, and transferring these people away from the case. But that's the Trump administration. And we're going to see more of these screw-ups, not less. How many times have we had accidental issues with the Trump administration? Oops, we deported and removed Abrego Garcia to El Salvador. Oops, we posted the address for Abrego Garcia's wife, and now she's had to move into hiding. Oops. It's always an oops. And it's because by hollowing out all of these institutions and having a brain drain, right, where the smart people leaving behind the rest, and now they're overworked and underpaid, bad things happen. Bad things happen when people don't want to work for this administration. And that's what we're watching. I'll continue to follow it right here on Legal AF. Hit the subscribe button until my next report. In collaboration with the Midas Touch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories, the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at Legal AF MTN. That's at Legal AF MTN.